Hello, welcome to my presentation. I am so happy you're here, and I'm so happy to share with you some really important information. I've got a lot of really cool stuff to share with you, and I'm excited to get launched off and sharing it with you. But first of all, I want you to think about relationships. I want you to think about what builds good relationships, right? So look at here. How are we in our relations, okay? And how should we be? Why don't you tell me what are some of the attributes or some of the things that we should be that builds happy relationships? Okay, you guys tell me. Great, we should be kind, right? Very good. We should be loving, right? We should be compassionate. Forgive my messy writing here. Okay, we should be patient, right? So all of these build really good relationships, right? Now, probably most of us are able to do this, a lot of the time, right? I mean, we're hopefully decent people, and we can do that most of the time. Now, what happens when we are in maybe really charged emotional reactions or emotional situations where we're stressed out or we feel hurt by something that's been said or done, and we now are in a more emotional state, right? So what do we end up being, okay, in those situations? And let's be honest, right? How does this happen for us? Well, instead of being kind, maybe we could be a little bit mean, or we could be a little bit not nice, right? We could be cold and cut off, right? Great. We can be irritated, okay, angry, resentful, right? All those kind of things. Does that ever happen to you? I don't know. Maybe I've just made this up, right? Maybe this doesn't happen to us, but I think it does, right? And so we have this situation right here, and this is what happens in our not good moments, right? And unfortunately, for a lot of us, our not good moments are ones that end up not being or happening too often, right? So how do we get to be more of this? Because we look at this side of the equation, right? We look at, what is our mentor when we look at these characteristics, right? We look at Christ. Christ is the one that embodies all of these really good characteristics we have, right? And so here is the not good part of ourselves, right? And so what is the bridge, right? What helps us to be over here? Well, part of the answer is Christ is part of that bridge, right? He helps us to be that way. And the more we can be Christ-like, the more we can be loving, the more we can be under the influence of His Spirit, the more likely we're going to be over here, right? And for a lot of us, we want to be over here, and we hope we're over here, and we try to be. But what happens is for too many of us, we spend too much time in this right column, and it's not because we don't want to be Christ-like. It's not because we aren't converted. It's not that we haven't read our scriptures enough or don't pray enough. What it really is about is that we have our emotional side of us that when it gets triggered, it makes us hard to become Christ-like, okay? And real quick, on this side, I have a little thing about mortal versus celestial emotions, okay? And what happens is we talk about in the fall of Adam that there was a physical change and a spiritual change. And the physical change, our bodies, obviously we become subject to death, and they were also become subject to the influence of the adversary, of the devil, right? Spiritually, we'd be cut off from the presence of God. And again, we would have to go by faith to connect up with that spiritual part of ourselves, and that made things more challenging for us. Now, one other piece in here that we don't often talk about with the fall is the emotional side of the fall. And I'm going to share with you some scriptures and some quotes from some general authorities that support this, that there was an emotional part of the fall too. And just like our physical natures became subject to the adversary, to the influence of the adversary, so did our natural man, our natural part of ourselves, also is emotionally mortal. And when we give in to this side of us, then this kind of stuff happens. This is when we get angry, we get depressed, we get worried, we get fearful. All these things are not sins. They're just they're emotions that we feel as mortals. But when we give in to these emotional states, it makes us hard to respond as Christ, because they're not Christ-like emotions. What are the Christ-like emotions? Well, their love, their kindness, their compassion, their patience. The stuff you feel like when you go to the temple or a really good church meeting, how you feel like, oh, I'm never going to yell at anyone ever again. That's the kind of stuff. That's when we're under the influence of the right spirit. But we can't do that all the time because we're mortal. And so we need to learn how this works, and we need to learn how to manage that the right way so we can do this thing more. And that's one of the big things I'm going to share with you today, is how to be more on this side of the equation, not on that side of the equation. You ready for this? I'm super excited. Let's get started.